This episode is brought to you by Quaker Rage Oatmeal Stout. When you're too nice to show how angry you are, have yourself a Quaker Rage.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 60 of Films and Fermentation, a movie and alcohol podcast. Tonight's episode is a look at the career of the great Harrison Ford. We called this episode Get Off My Podcast.
His friends call him Harry.
Yeah, his friends call him
Ridiculous.
Harry. Some of the alternate show titles that I had in mind for this were I Podcast. I know. Or Podcasts. Why did it have to be podcast? And finally, no time for podcast, Dr. Jones. But ultimately, I went with Get Off My Podcast because I couldn't think of any quotes from Regarding Henry. So welcome again to Films and Fermentation. I'm Leo.
I'm Kevin.
I'm Mike.
We're just three friends who like to talk shit about movies while getting shit-faced. Don't forget to drop us an email at filmsandfermentation@gmail.com or visit us at linktree.com/filmsandfermentation to find all of our social media and podcast links. We are also on Patreon. The Patreon link is also on the Linktree site. Please support us if you like the show. In this episode, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the career of Mr. Harrison Ford, legend of the silver screen, somewhat accomplished pilot, former carpenter, and has played a numerous amount of iconic roles such as Han Solo, Indiana Jones, Jack Ryan, etc. And at one time, he was the most profitable actor in movie history.
Hey, Lee?
Yeah.
I thought of another name you could have done with it.
What's that?
I didn't kill my podcast. I don't care.
I don't care. I want you to search every farmhouse, outhouse, doghouse podcast. That would be for the Tommy Lee deep dive. All right, so gentlemen, I flipped the format for this episode since it's our 60th. Let's talk about our drinks first. So, Mike, what you got going?
I'll go first since I was lazy this week because, well, not lazy. I was busy today with 3 doctor's appointments.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just went with Steve Austin's Broken Skull American Lager.
I like the Steve Austin Lager, is really good. So is the
They're
Steve
very
Austin
good.
IPA. Kevin, you said you are going German tonight?
I'm going German tonight. There's
Jawohl.
no rhyme or reason. I got a one of those mystery 8-packs from Benash a couple weeks ago. Benash.
Shout out to Benash.
Benash. Yes, they are a wonderful place. And these two were in them. I'm going to start off. Well, I'll tell you what I'm starting off with. This is Tannenzapfel. And I think I got that pronunciation right. I don't know what the
Tannenzapfel.
yes. Tannenzapfel.
Yeah, I'll look it up.
It is a Pilsner.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I can't pronounce any of this stuff on this. Badish Stratos Bier Rojas. Anyway, it's a beer. It's a Pilsner, and it's 5.3% alcohol by volume from Germany.
It means pine cone.
It
Yeah. Does it?
Yes.
That would explain the pine cones on it.
Pine cone.
But it's got this really fun gold foil top that I'm sure I won't be able to open and without spilling all over my wife's work desk. But I will give it a shot anyway. Got to use proper tools.
I was watching Young Frankenstein last night for no other reason than it popped up as a movie on my feed, and I was like, man, I love Young Frankenstein. But there's a scene in there where Frau Blucher is talking to the monster, and she calls him mein Schneidenkopf or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked it up to see because I don't speak German. So I looked it up on Google Translate. She called him my little shithead. And I was like, that's awesome. So I actually went theme tonight. First,
hold on.
Yeah,
Kevin, how's it taste?
It tastes piney.
like a Christmas tree.
It tastes like the Fräulein who's giving it to them.
All right. Don't forget to log it on tap.
Yeah.
Oh, good call. I'm on it now.
So I did a little research and I looked up to see what Harrison Ford's favorite drink is. and he's a Scotch man.
Okay.
Nice.
And I'm not a big Scotch person, especially like by itself on the ice. So I looked up Harrison Ford inspired cocktails, and actually found a cocktail called the Harrison Ford cocktail.
Okay.
So I made it here now. I was shaking it up. I have to pour it out still. It is chocolate liqueur, Irish cream, and Scotch.
That sounds good to me.
Thrown into a
Okay.
tumbler, shaken up, and then poured
Shake
over
it
some
up,
ice.
baby, now. Shake it
Yeah.
up, baby.
And then we're gonna pour it over some ice in my my mason jar here,
We do our drinking from a mason jar.
and I will let you know how it tastes. I was really worried about it congealing with the Scotch mixed in with the liqueur and all that stuff. Smells strong. That is tasty.
Yeah.
Wow, that is Harrison Ford tastes good.
Don't everybody thank me at once.
No, I won't. Wow, that was awesome. All right, Mike, why don't you
Yes.
take it away?
This day in film history.
History.
This day in film history in 1878, Danner State Hospital, a psychiatric hospital in Massachusetts, opens. Later serves as the inspiration for Arkham Sanatorium and the works of H.P. Lovecraft, which in turn inspired Arkham Asylum and the DC Batman universe.
Wow.
Saw that. I went up, Megan and I went up last summer, and we were looking for things to check out, I think, on our way home. And that was one of them. So we drove up to it, and it was not, I mean, it's all redone now. It's all refurbished, whatever. So it looks nice and cozy. But yeah.
So it's still an operating hospital.
Yes.
Oh
yes.
wow. Well, I thought it was like an abandoned thing or something.
Yeah.
No. To go up, it's really nice. They've really redone it nicely.
So it's not, you're not going to find a Joker hanging out there then.
No.
Not the iron gates out front.
Iron Gates.
Nice, sweet, and calm, tranquil. You know.
Cthulhu is not going to rise from the depths of the earth and overtake the world.
It's kind of disappointing.
Yeah, I know. I when you're saying like, oh yeah, it's all refurbished, it's very nice looking now. It's like, oh.
Oh.
I was kind of hoping it looked like Arkham Asylum.
Yeah, it's good.
Mike, what's your fun drink fact for us tonight, sir?
Today I'm doing some beer trivia for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
President Jimmy Carter signed H.R. 1337 on October 14th, 1978, which included an amendment that allowed brewing at home for family or personal consumption. This effectively legalized home brewing at the federal level. The amendment also created an exemption from taxation on home brew.
You know, it's because the president was so brewing, he just wanted to make it legal.
That's right.
That's like, if you don't want to get in trouble for something, you just make it legal, and then everybody can do it, and then you're guilt free at that point.
Then why didn't Clinton make marijuana legal at his time?
He was too busy working on getting blowjobs outside of your marriage to.
Oh yeah,
There you go.
It looks like the murder house from the first season of American Horror Story.
A little bit, right?
Yeah.
Aw.
That's Megan's camera debut.
That's right.
No, her hand made a debut earlier.
Yeah, her hand made a debut smacking Kevin in the face. What a nice parking lot.
I can see
You can see the Arkham in it, can't
I can see the argument.
A little bit, yeah. Because like I said, it did like the murder house too, and that's kind of like.
you?
So notes from last show. A Twitter user whose name I forgot to record suggested that The Force Awakens is a ripoff of A New Hope.
Oh, absolutely.
Speaking of Star Wars ripoffs. What I loved about that is that Force Awakens comes out and all the naysayers are bitching because it's too much like A New Hope. And then Last Jedi comes out, and that same group of people are bitching that it's not enough like Empire Strikes Back. And it's like, can't fucking win, man.
No.
I love Star Wars, you know that, man. But
I think they should just reboot the sequels.
Oh yeah, I think they
I'm
should
kidding.
reboot all 9 movies. That's all. Start from scratch.
Whoa.
I think we should get that George Lucas Legend of the Wills movie where we get to see the midichlorians on a.
That's right, where they shrink down into the body.
Yeah, It's inner space meets Star Wars. There's a new Netflix series that's coming out soon that looks pretty good. It's a comedy series called Blockbuster, and it's about the last blockbuster in the country.
Mhm.
So Netflix recently did a documentary produced by Kevin Smith called The Last Blockbuster, and it's all about this Blockbuster video, and I want to say it's in like Portland or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's the last functioning movie rentals Blockbuster in the country.
Oh wow.
So Netflix decided to adapt that into a sort of like Netflix style sitcom,
Mhm.
and it looks pretty funny. It stars Melissa Fumero, who was on Brooklyn Nine-Nine,
Mhm.
and Randall Park, who is best known as the FBI agent from WandaVision and Ant-Man and the Wasp and all that.
Right.
And he was on Fresh Off the Boat, and as a stand-up comedian and everything. So it looked pretty funny. It looked pretty good. So it's a series that I'm looking to check out once that starts. We also have Obi-Wan starting soon, a couple weeks.
Yeah.
We're really looking forward to that. And Stranger Things is starting up again soon too.
Yep.
The final season.
Gentlemen, I watched Jay and Silent Bob reboot.
I watched that too. Yeah. What did you think?
I
thought it was funny, you know.
It was a good tongue in cheek.
It
He
was
definitely pokes fun at all of his shit.
He pokes fun at all of his shit, and at the same time, it's sort of meta because he's poking fun at the fact that we're rebooting everything too.
Yes.
So he reboots his own movie.
I watched.
I feel like a lot of his movies anymore, though, his newer films are just an excuse to get his daughter on screen.
Oh, that's true.
This last weekend, I watched The Death on the Nile.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
It wasn't bad. It was long at the beginning.
It was very long. The whole backstory about why he grew the mustache is not from the book. That was
Just
written for the film by Kenneth Branagh.
Okay.
Really bad CGI.
Yeah.
Like the whole Nile was CGI.
Yeah, I mean,
and it was like early 90s style CGI. I mean, it was okay. I thought Murder on the Orient Express was better.
I haven't found the free version of that yet. So.
And I haven't watched Death on the Nile because I don't want to get lost because I know it's a sequel and I want to make sure I start off with the original.
It's not a real sequel.
He's fucking with you.
So I did hear something you said earlier, Lee, about the people talking about how the movies, how Force Awakens was too much like New Hope, and then the other one wasn't too much like, was it enough like
Empire?
Yeah. Harrison Ford had something to say to those people.
You could be a little nicer, though.
You could use a good kiss.
Harrison wanted to be out after the first movie. After Star Wars, he was
after Empire. He wanted to die in the carbonite scene. Yeah, he wasn't a big fan of the teddy bear picnic at the end of Jedi. I have a movie recommendation for you guys. It's a movie that I'm like addicted to. Like I've watched it I think 3 times in the last week. It's Guy Ritchie's last film, which came out in 2019. It's called The Gentleman, and it stars Matthew McConaughey, Charlie Hunnam, Colin Farrell's in it, Hugh Grant's in it. It's one of the Guy Ritchie like gangster film things, like Snatch and Lock and Two Smoking Barrels and all that.
Yeah,
it is a fun movie, man. Like it's a really fun movie. It's violent. It's got a lot of like weird twists and turns, so you got to kind of like pay attention to it. But the acting in it is phenomenal, especially Hugh Grant. Hugh Grant has made this change in his career where he went from being the foppish like romantic lead to just playing downright villains in all these last few movies that he's been in.
Nice.
And in this movie, he plays this like really skeevy, conniving journalist who's trying to blackmail this drug kingpin character played by Matthew McConaughey. And there's all these like twists and turns and shit. Colin Farrell's amazing in it. It's a really, really good movie. And I'm like addicted to it. Like I can't stop watching, especially like that South London, like brogue when they talk in that like really like streetwise English. Cockney almost. Yeah, I kind of get into that. It's funny.
Speaking of London, Lee,
it's a good one. Yeah.
What do you think of the new Doctor?
I don't know much about that actor.
Okay.
I know he was on that show that Kevin likes, Sex Education.
Yeah.
Kevin froze.
Kevin's frozen.
Oh no! He's looking like he's frozen in the middle of a dance with his beer.
Oh wait, I was frozen. You
You
guys
froze.
were frozen.
You
You're
froze
frozen.
for a little second. You had your beer in your hand. You were like.
So,
So the new doctor was on that show, Sex Education, that you've seen, Kev. He was
He's a solid actor.
yeah,
He's the friend of the
the best friend of the main character. So I know he's won a lot of like the BAFTA awards, the English, like English version of the Oscars. So he's like, he's supposed to be a really good actor. And I'm not, I don't care. Like I just like Doctor Who, and I wanted to be I wanted to be entertaining. I don't really care who the doctor is,
as long as it's a good doctor.
Yeah. And I saw the thing you just sent me, Kev, that Christopher Walken is going to play the Emperor in Dune Part 2.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that.
I didn't.
The spice.
I didn't. The spice must flow. He is the Kwisatz Haderach. Wow, that's a big worm. Katie just came in from happy hour. She says, "I'm so loud."
That's because she's so hungover.
Hold on, I'm going to pause for a sec. So where was I? Oh yeah, Florence Pugh has also been cast too. She's going to be playing the Emperor's daughter.
Okay.
So I was excited about that. I wasn't sure if the Christopher Walken thing was real. Like I had saw that earlier today, and I was like, is Christopher Walken really going to play the Emperor in Dune? Like it just seems like kind of out of place considering. Like I love Chris Walken, you know that, but seemed kind of out of place given the other actors that are in the film.
Well, after Peter Pan, he needs to do something.
Was Peter Pan his one bad role?
Well, I wouldn't say that, but
Christopher Walken. Let's see here.
Yeah,
top story in a Hollywood Reporter. Christopher Walken joins Timothy Chalamet, Zendaya, and others in Dune Part 2. That is so weird. That is a big worm. Wow. The House Atreides. All right, so that brings us to our main segment this evening. The main segment is, of course, our deep dive into the career of Harrison Ford. We got a little mini bio. We'll look at his a little bit about his life, some fun facts about Harrison Ford, and we'll take a little look at his filmography. We're not going to spend too much time on all of the movies. He's got a lot of them in his filmography. But we'll definitely take a look at some of the more popular ones. And of course, the ones that were given to us by listeners of the show. I put on, I'm like talking, like walking now, and it's not on purpose.
Can't stop it.
It's stuck in my head.
It needs more cowbells.
Yeah, I got a fever. So I posted on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Aside from Han Solo and Indiana Jones, what would be your favorite Harrison Ford performance? And we got a lot of people sending us their answers for this. So first on Instagram, Kev, it's our old friend Tooch.
Hey, Tooch.
Hi, Nicole. Nicole, she dropped down What Lies Beneath.
Oh, that's a good one.
The good one.
And I was thinking earlier,
I haven't seen that one in a while.
Has he ever played a villain? And that just, I mean, when that reminds me, he was an excellent villain in that. Yeah.
And he was like a surprise villain because find out at the end. Also on Instagram, a guy who follows us on our Films of Fermentation page, RK Muse, wrote down The Fugitive. Of course, The Fugitive will have to be spoken about.
Yep.
Joey Hay on Facebook said Blade Runner. Alfie Lauda on Facebook said American Graffiti. Witness. Witness is, of course, the only movie he's received an Oscar nomination for. And that's
a locally filmed movie, I believe. Pennsylvania, at least.
Pennsylvania Dutch, yeah. And he also voted for What Lies Beneath, but Blade Runner is one of my favorite movies of all time. He also
Oh.
said, I heard he actually didn't want to do Blade Runner and there was a lot of tension on set. Well, we'll get into that little backstory when we get to Blade Runner on the list.
Okay.
Doug Dorda on Facebook said, it's not a popular opinion, but his performance in 6 Days, 7 Nights must be discussed. I don't know if that's a joke or not because I don't know this person. So Matthew Wedge on Facebook said, What Lies Beneath is one of those movies that's a real time capsule of the era in which it was made. It was made in the year 2000, so it was right on the cusp of the new century here. He said, you got to talk about it. Jason Pietzmeyer on Facebook said, regarding Henry. It was the only vote I saw for that one. My wife, Katie, her favorite Harrison Ford film is Sabrina. And this guy that I work with, his name's Noah. He's a teacher at my school, says Air Force One or The Fugitive.
Okay.
And you know what I'm surprised no one put out there, and it's kind of a role he took over and did a better job than the originator, was Jack Ryan. Yeah.
I mean, I liked Alec Baldwin in the first film.
Right.
I did really like Harrison Ford. I mean, Harrison Ford did the most movies as Jack Ryan, so it kind of like became his role. And then Ben Affleck did one, The Sum of All Fears. And then wasn't it? I think it was Chris Pine took it over. There was a Jack Ryan film. It was called Jack Ryan Shadow Recruit. And Chris Pine played it.
And John Krasinski
did the series on Amazon.
The series on Amazon, yeah.
So my personal favorites before we get into the other stuff is I love Blade Runner. It's one of my favorite movies. Air Force One is just a classic. And one that's not spoken much because it didn't do well in the box office, but I actually think it's a pretty decent adaptation. It's Ender's Game.
Oh yeah.
He plays Colonel Graff. He's the guy that recruits Ender for the military school. I think it's an under-regarded sci-fi film. I really liked it. So let's take a look at this little mini bio on the life of Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford, born Harrison Ford. I was looking, I was like, I wonder if Harrison Ford's his real name. And it is. So often, you think they change their names and stuff.
Little bio, Jesus.
Born July 13th, 1942 in Chicago, Illinois, to Dorothy and Chris. Chris was an actor turned advertising executive. He is of Irish and German ancestry. He signed his first Hollywood contract in 1967. He's been in numerous television roles in the 60s and into the beginning of the 70s before, finding his first major film role in American Graffiti and then hitting colossal movie star status when he played Han Solo a few years later in the original Star Wars film. He also was a franchise player in Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, as well as the 3 films that followed. Unfortunately, there was a 4th film. And looks like there's a 5th film being filmed now, too. It's Indiana Jones and the Raiders of AARP. 4 years later, in 1985, he received his first and only Academy Award and Golden Globe nomination. Well, I think he's had more than one Golden Globe nom, but his only Academy Award nomination, playing John Book in the film Witness.
Excellent movie.
As you said, he also took over the role of Jack Ryan in the Patriot Games. He got another Golden Globe nom for his role as Richard Kimball in The Fugitive. One of the most well-established Hollywood movie stars. He has an 800-acre ranch in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, that he built himself because he was a carpenter at one point.
Carpenter.
Yeah.
Yep. He also is a private pilot of fixed-wing aircraft and helicopter. He has crashed on occasion.
Once or twice. But who's counting?
I think his last major injury was on the set of Force Awakens. He broke his ankle or something running off of the Millennium Falcon.
Oh.
But yeah, so that's the mini. Yes, Mike, that is the mini bio. I try to limit it a little bit. I like this. He has some trademarks. The Harrison Ford trademarks. Frequently plays characters who use their intelligence rather than physical strength. Known to take a lot of hits and endure a lot of pain in his action films. Quiet but charming personality, deep, soft, soothing voice. Known for his iconic roles, quick-witted. Often works with Spielberg and Lucas. Has a very sarcastic, world-weary sense of humor. performs many of his own stunts, and is known
Married
for
to Callista Flockhart.
married to Callista Flockhart, and and is also known for often in his films pointing his finger in somebody's face. That's not how the force works. So this is a little mini bio about him. Let's look at some fun facts about the life of Harrison Ford.
Some of the trivia here.
Yeah, a little bit of trivia here. Harrison Ford has the rank of Life Scout in the Boy Scouts of America.
Oh, wow.
Before becoming an actor, he was a carpenter. He still practices the trade to this day as a hobby.
Yep.
In 1997, Empire magazine voted him the #1 movie star of all time. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, it was 1997. I'm sure it's probably changed since then, but
Also in 97, People magazine voted one of the 50 most beautiful people in the world.
and in 1998, he was considered the sexiest man alive
Hey.
by said magazine. Air Force One was originally supposed to star Kevin Costner, but Ford replaced him. I don't know. I think that probably would have still been a pretty good movie with Kevin Costner.
I agree.
But it's hard to like picture somebody other than Ford now. When he divorced his first wife, Melissa Matheson's, it was reported to be the 4th most expensive celebrity divorce in history, costing him approximately $85 million.
Oh, wow.
Holy shit. She was also the screenwriter for E.T. Which he makes a brief appearance in a deleted scene.
Really?
Yes.
As what?
He's the principal at the school when Elliot gets in trouble.
Oh, yeah.
And you only see him from behind, but he's pointing the finger, so you know it's him.
Right.
And it's a deleted scene. There was a silent film actor in the 1920s also named Harrison Ford. He was offered the role of Dr. Alan Grant in Jurassic Park, but turned it down, and the role went to Sam Neill. He also turned down major movie roles in Proof of Life, The Perfect Storm, and The Patriot. There is a species of ant named after Harrison Ford in recognition of his conservation work that he's carried out over the years. He has a friendship with Billy D. Williams, who played Lando Calrissian. They are actually friends in real life. His star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame is actually in front of the Kodak Theater.
Huh.
Yeah, you don't see that very often.
Mm-mm.
He never signed a contract during any of his roles in the Star Wars trilogies because he was always looking for a way to get out of it, like you said. Built his own house, as I said. He has starred in 4 of the 10 biggest blockbusters ever produced.
Here's one. His character Han Solo was ranked number 33 in Comedy Central's mouthing off 51 greatest smartasses.
It's a good one. Although we would love for it to be Han Solo, he has frequently confessed that Indiana Jones is his favorite character and the one that he's most proud of. He's also a very extremely private man and very rarely lets his private life out in the open. Now, of all the movies that he's done in his career, it was weird because his favorite film that he's done was not one that I would have thought of. It was, what did it say it was? I think it was The Mosquito Coast.
It said making both Witness and The Mosquito Coast. Yep.
Yeah, Mosquito Coast is like his favorite film that he's starred in his career.
Mm-hmm.
So let's jump into the filmography because it's a long one. And we're not going to spend time on unfamiliar territory. We're not going to really talk about the TV shows. We're going to kind of get into his acting career, like with the movies and such. So
you don't want to cover his voice role in The Secret Life of Pets too?
Was he in The Secret Life of Pets? Oh, he was the dog, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He like the old dog that teaches the dog that Louis C.K. was replaced by Patton Oswalt. That dog.
The old dog that learned the new tricks. Yeah.
Yes.
But we will talk about his voice acting in the story of the Faithful Wookiee and the Star Wars Holiday Special, right?
He actually appears in the holiday special. That's why he wanted to get out of doing Star Wars.
I also forgot. Well, we'll get to it later on that he was in a movie. It's coming up.
So his very first acting role was an uncredited one as a bellhop in a movie called Dead Heat on the Merry-Go-Round in 1966. And then he did a lot of like little roles in small films, like walk-on appearances, then a bunch of TV series like The Virginian, Ironside, The Mod Squad. He was in an episode. He played a beach cop, series FBI, etc. It wasn't until the 1970s, 1973 to be exact, when he made his very first feature film and had it was his largest role to date in a feature film as Bob Falfa in American Graffiti.
Yes.
Yeah, he had the
1973.
Roadster.
Mhm. When's the last time you guys seen American Graffiti?
Oh, it's been
Oh, not long ago.
years.
Not long ago, really.
No,
Yeah.
it came on and I was like, oh man, I haven't watched this in forever.
Yeah, it's
It's good.
been years since I've seen American Graffiti. From there, he went from doing American Graffiti to a one-off appearance in the TV series Kung Fu
As Mr. Harrison.
as Mr. Harrison. Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. Then he was in The Conversation. Conversation is a movie starring Gene Hackman as a detective who records people's conversations and all that stuff.
Okay.
It's a strange movie. It's kind of like one that gets forgotten. It's a Francis Ford Coppola movie that he snuck in there in between The Godfather 1 and 2. So it kind of gets overshadowed by the fact that it was in between the Godfather films. Then he did a couple more TV things here and there, and then in 1977, his career took off for the stars, pun intended, when he starred in the seminal classic Star Wars: A New Hope. Here's where I'm going to bust out a little bit more trivia. I put down in the notes from last show, I forgot to mention this. If we ever do an episode where you do a deep dive on the career of Tim Burton, we're gonna have to do two separate episodes. One that talks about his career, and one that talks about all the actors that the studio wanted to play the Johnny Depp roles in the movies that he made. Because I found out today that in Edward Scissorhands, the studio wanted Tom Cruise.
That would have been weird.
He was like the big star at the time.
I don't think that would have been as good.
Yeah, I doubt it. So actors who have auditioned for Han Solo before it was given to our man Harrison Ford. So here are your actors who auditioned or were offered the role. Han Solo was offered to Sylvester Stallone, Christopher Walken, and Kurt Russell, as well as Al Pacino and Burt Reynolds.
My
You
God.
imagine any of those people?
Kurt Russell might have pulled it off.
Kurt Russell, maybe. It was right around the time where he started doing the John Carpenter films that kind of made him, the actor that he's known for today. Chris Walken, I don't know. I mean, he was in the 70s. He was a different actor. It wasn't the Chris Walken we know now.
You don't know the Millennium Falcon?
I couldn't see Al Pacino. There's if you watch enough Star Wars as I have, you realize there's really no Italians in space. And then which would I'm Italian, so I can say that. Which also eliminates Sylvester Stallone. I can't Stallone either, man.
Hey, yo, it's the Millennium
Oh,
Falcon.
put it in hyperdrive.
You don't know the ship that made the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs?
Hey, you gotta do that with the walking then, man. You don't know the ship that made the Kessel Run. It's fast enough for you, old man. But yeah, I think Kurt Russell is probably the only one I could have seen. It's funny in the
you couldn't see him going, laugh it up. Fuzzball.
There's in one of the Star Wars novels that don't count anymore, one of the legacy ones as they call it. You find out that Han Solo has like a estranged stepbrother, and the description of the stepbrother and the drawing of the stepbrother in like the comic versions of the story looks like Christopher Walken. They kind of drop that in there as like a little Easter egg. But yeah, those are your actors who could have played Han Solo. Han Solo, of course, was given to Harrison Ford, and the rest is history, as they say. What do we got next here? Heroes in 1977. I don't know this film.
No.
I mean, he has a character name in it, so I'm assuming it was, a large. Oh, look, I just clicked on it to say it stars Henry Winkler and Sally Field, and it looks like it is a Vietnam War film. Vietnam veteran suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder breaks out of the hospital and goes on a road trip with a sympathetic traveler to start a worm farm in California.
Oh yeah,
It sounds like the Cousin Eddie story from Vacation. Henry Winkler, Harrison Ford, Sally Field. This is how you know you're still early in your career, when Henry Winkler is getting the credit over Harrison Ford in the film. Then he's in Force 10 from Navarone.
Yep, with Carl Weathers.
It's a Western film. And then he does the one that Mike really wanted me to make sure I mentioned, 1978. He does the voice of Han Solo in an animated short called The Story of the Faithful Wookiee. Sounds like a children's book.
I think in the Story of the Faithful Wookiee, wasn't that the first?
That's the appearance of Boba Fett.
Boba Fett, yeah.
Yeah, it was part of the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Yeah.
But then they also released it as a separate entity on its own, because he did the Star Wars Holiday Special that year as well. Have either of you seen the Star Wars Holiday Special?
I've seen bits and pieces of it. Once you see Maud, what was her name?
Oh, B. Arthur.
B. Arthur is a bar, on Tatooine. It's like, all right, I'm good.
We're done.
Or the scene where Chewbacca's dad, Itchy, I think his name is. Oh my God, his son's name is Lumpy.
Lumpy, Chewy,
and Itchy. And so Itchy gets this like machine that he puts on, and it's I can't remember the singer's name from the 70s who does this like really like sensual dance, and it's almost like
Donna Summers.
Yeah, Donna Summers, and she's like talking all sensually and dancing, and he's having like a Wookiee orgasm while he's watching it, and it's like he's like, oh, God, that's a fucking weird thing in the Star Wars special. It is available for free on YouTube if you're ever bored and you want to watch the whole thing.
Really brings out the holidays.
It really does. When you get to the end and Carrie Fisher awkwardly sings lyrics to the Star Wars theme song.
Their lyrics?
Which are all about the Wookiee Life Day celebration. Then he did a film called Hanover Street, not one that I'm familiar with. And from there, he had a small role in Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, I didn't even remember he was in Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, I think it's like almost like a cameo. I think it's like one scene he appears in.
Wow.
Colonel Lucas. Yeah, I mean, because Apocalypse Now is more about Martin Sheen and Marlon Brando and all that.
But everybody quotes the napalm scene.
Yeah, everybody quotes the napalm scene, the old Robert Duvall scene.
Yep.
You know who else was in that? Was Lawrence Fishburne.
First role.
Was 14 years old when he was in that movie, lied about his age so that he would be cast in it.
Mm-hmm.
Told him he was.
And then went on to Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Yes, as playing Cowboy Curtis. Cowboy Curtis. And then
it's a lighter role than he had before.
That's why the Wachowskis got him to play Morpheus in the Matrix. They really liked his performance as Cowboy Curtis. Then he did The Frisco Kid. Is this I know of this one because this is Gene Wilder.
Yes, it is.
I can't remember if I've seen this or not. Gene Wilder, Harrison Ford.
It's a comedy.
Yeah, it's a comedy. I mean, you look at the trailer for it, and it looks almost like Blazing Saddles.
Yeah.
But with Harrison Ford instead of Cleavon Little. So there you go, Mike. You were looking for comedies that Harrison Ford did.
Well, because when we talked about this last week, Kevin said, did he ever do a comedy?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I can't recall a comedy. And if this is a comedy, which I would guess it would have to be with Gene Wilder.
Mm-hmm.
That was early this career. That was even before Empire.
Yeah. Then he does More American Graffiti in 1979, where he plays Officer Bob Falfa,
Uncredited.
uncredited role. And then in 1980, this is kind of like
His explosion.
this is the decade of Ford.
Yes.
Aside from Star Wars in 77 and Apocalypse Now, I don't think I've really seen much else from the 70s that he was in. But then you get to 1980, and I have definitely seen every one of these movies, I think. I'm pretty sure I've seen every one of these movies. I definitely saw Empire Strikes Back in 1980.
Yep.
And I definitely saw Raiders of the Lost Ark in 81.
Yes.
Here's a tough debate for you.
Okay.
Which is a better film, Raiders or Empire?
Ooh.
Or let's put it this way.
Raiders.
Which would you watch if you had a choice? One was on one station, one was on the other. Which one would you tune into?
I'd watch Raiders.
Really?
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's the beginning of Indiana Jones, and I don't know.
I think it would depend upon my mood. If I was in the
Okay.
sci-fi mood, or if I was into the adventure mood.
I think I would try to capture particular scenes, like flip back and forth, and see if I can just capture like the scenes that I like from each film. Any scene with Karen Allen. Any scene with Carrie Fisher.
So no Yoda scenes then.
No,
huh?
yeah, it's both my crushes are in two of those films from my youth. So yeah, but that is a tough one. I don't know what I would choose. It's weird. I think it'd have to be like you said, the mood I'm in,
Mhm.
and I think it would be like where it is in the film. Like if
Also, what station is it on?
because is it edited? Is it full length? Is it
Yeah.
Then in 1982, he does Blade Runner.
Yes, he did.
Now, Blade Runner is the one person who sent us a message on
Mhm.
Facebook, I think it was, said he didn't actually want to do Blade Runner. There was a lot of tension on set. Now, it's not that he didn't want to do Blade Runner. He was cast in it. It was that Ridley Scott, who was the director of the first Blade Runner, was a very hard director to work with. He was very demanding. He was a perfectionist. They would have days that went on, 14, 15, 16 hours filming because he wanted things to be a particular way. And the other problem was he was a British director working on an American set and wasn't used to dealing with American unions. And so there was a lot of tension between the union workers and him. And they started wearing T-shirts that said fuck Ridley and stuff like that on it. They were really fighting with each other a lot. That being said, Ridley Scott still thinks it's one of his best films ever. No, I really like Blade Runner, but I have to watch the director's cut. I don't like the original one. The original theatrical release has narration in it, where Deckard, the character Ford plays, is narrating it sort of like a film noir kind of thing. Like he's the detective telling you his story. And that part of it, Harrison Ford himself did not like.
Yeah.
He said that it was not written by Philip K. Dick. It was not written by Ridley Scott. He said it was written by some idiots in a studio somewhere. He was not big. But if you watch the director's cut, all of that is taken out. There's a scene in there that suggests that Deckard is a replicant himself and has a much bleaker ending than the original theatrical cut. Then he does Return of the Jedi, a movie that he wasn't really on board for. He wanted Han Solo to die at the end of Empire Strikes Back.
He did.
Mm-hmm.
He thought one of the main characters needed to die in this series.
Yeah, there was no stakes in the series. It needed some stakes, and that would have been a way to do it. But then at the same time, how do you kill off Han Solo, man? Especially then, it's bad enough he dies in Force Awakens.
Yeah.
But it was I don't know how you kill him off at that point.
I never kill anybody off. Kill off,
Jar Jar.
Oh, yeah, of course that. But,
Kill off Lando.
Kill off Lando. Kill off Lando.
Poor Billy D.
Kill off the only black man in this universe.
Harrison Ford is going on record as saying he wasn't a big fan of the teddy bear picnic at the end of the film.
Yep.
Then he goes on 1984. This is a stretch, man. 1980 to 1984. 1, 2, 3, 4,
Five.
5 blockbuster like movies that like crushed the box office.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Not everybody's cup of tea as far as like favorite Indiana Jones films go.
Mhm.
I find it enjoyable. It is a little bit like problematic when you think it's fairly stereotypical in how it treats the culture that he has to work with in the film.
Right.
I'm not a big fan of the female lead.
Kate Capshaw.
Like nothing against Kate Capshaw. I don't like the character.
You don't like Willie.
Oh,
Willie. Like it's just she's an annoying character. I do like
Yes.
Short Round.
I think the biggest problem I see with that one for
Mhm.
most people, it's not a area that people know a lot about, especially in America. They don't know a lot
Yeah.
about that culture. So like all the other Indiana Jones is, you know it because it's Christianity.
Yeah, and this was very like kind of like a stereotypical view of what that culture is like.
Right.
That being said, like I do still find it kind of entertaining.
Oh yeah, I enjoy it.
Actually, so I haven't seen Everything Everywhere All at Once yet, the new Michelle Yeoh film.
Mhm.
But I did see a short clip of it the other day, and there's a scene where she's interacting with her husband, and I'm like, this guy looks really familiar, and his voice sounds really familiar. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? And I looked it up. That's the actor who played Short Round and Data in The Goonies and Temple of Doom. Plays Michelle Yeoh's husband in this film. And I'm like, holy shit, is he that old?
Yeah. Now
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it.
And then I'm like, am I that old?
Well, yeah, you are.
how old
Willie.
is Michelle Yeoh?
Like Michelle Yeoh's like in her 60s, I think. So
Is she really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Late 50s, maybe. I don't know, but I saw that and I was like, holy shit, Short Round.
No time
1980
for love, Dr. Jones.
Whatever, love Dr. Jones. 1985, he does Witness, which is the only film he's ever received an Academy Award nomination for.
Good movie. Really?
Yeah, plays a man who's
He's protecting a witness.
he's protecting the witness who is an Amish boy who saw a murder or something, and he's living on the Amish farm to protect the boy. And there's a little subplot love story between him and the Amish girl,
Of course.
Mhm.
who is I can't remember who the actress is in that, but I know it was somebody.
That is the same one from Top Gun.
Kelly McGillis.
Kelly McGillis.
Kelly McGillis. Yeah, Lucas Haas plays
Yes.
the young boy. Danny Glover's in it. Alexander Goodenough. That's one of the terrorists from Die Hard. He was the blonde guy that.
Oh, right. Yes,
that
he plays one
Carl
of the
from
Amish,
Family Matters shoots at the end.
and then he becomes one of the Amish outlaws because
Mhm.
he's
Oh,
one
yeah,
of the lead
yeah.
singers.
He's the tall guy. Amish Outlaws. I haven't seen them in a while.
They were just up at Parks a couple weeks ago.
Oh wow. And he does The Mosquito Coast in 1986, which he has called his own personal favorite role. I don't think this is the one in the 80s that I don't think I have seen.
Yeah, I don't think I.
Mhm.
I'm not familiar. I mean, I'm kind of familiar with it, but I know I haven't seen it. He's an inventor,
Oh,
spurns his
He works-
life, moves with his family into the jungles of Central America to try to create his own utopia, and it co-stars River Phoenix and Helen Mirren.
yeah. I didn't know that they had done. I mean, not that they had any scenes together in the other Indiana Jones, but I didn't know that they had worked together.
Yeah, I didn't know they worked together either. Yeah, because I'm not too familiar with this movie, as I said. Like, yeah, he plays young Indy in the third film, right?
Yeah, the
Last
Last
Crusade.
Crusade.
And I know, they don't share any scenes together because he's playing, Indiana Jones. Then he does Frantic in 1988.
Yeah, it's not a bad.
Another pretty popular film. Stars him, Betty Buckley, Thriller. Roman Polanski directed Thriller. Before Roman Polanski had to leave the country for,
Yeah.
being a pedophile. Working Girl, 1988. Talk about another comedy. This is a comedy film.
Yeah, but
My
he played
God.
the straight man.
He's the straight man, but it's a comedy film. It's also like a romantic lead,
Mhm.
and it's one of like those firsts for him, like a kind of first romantic lead character.
I forgot all the people that were in that movie.
A lot of
Yeah,
people.
Sigourney Weaver.
Sigourney
and,
Weaver. What's
Lenny
his name?
Griffith, Joan
Melanie Griffith.
Griffith,
Alan Griffith.
Alec
Yeah.
Baldwin, Oliver Platt,
Mhm. Real ensemble cast.
David
1988.
Duchovny.
Yeah, David Duchovny. Wow. I know it's a film my mom really liked because my mom was always had a big crush on Harrison Ford.
My mom liked it too.
Yeah. My mom's like three favorite like actors like when they were younger were Harrison Ford, Mel Gibson, and Clint Eastwood. She thought they were very handsome men. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade comes out in 1989, where he plays Indiana Jones for the third time. River Phoenix plays the young Indy in a very quick opening scene. And we get
Junior.
Legendary Sean Connery playing the father of Indiana Jones, even though Sean Connery is only 7 years older than Harrison Ford.
But he looks.
It is a good reveal as to what Indiana's name actually was, though. I mean, that was a nice little
Junior.
Yeah.
Junior. We
The
named the
dog's
dog.
name was Indiana.
The dog Indiana. And I also like that in that movie they took Harrison Ford's actual chin scar into consideration, like for the character, you know. I really just enjoyed that whole opening scene, which reveals so much of where Indy gets his phobia of snakes, his practice with the whip, you know, his fedora, yeah, everything.
It's a movie I think that a lot of people regard it as a step up from Temple of Doom after the success of Raiders.
Yeah.
I was not a big fan of it the first time I saw it. It took a couple like viewings for me to kind of like appreciate it for what it was. And I haven't seen it in a while. I have to kind of rewatch that one. Junior. I like that
and while the Indiana Jones movies are more serious, he does have some comedic roles, moments in those movies.
Because it's supposed to be lighthearted.
For sure.
It's supposed to be lighthearted because it's a swashbuckling adventure. You know, it's like it's based on the old serials that Lucas used to watch in the movie theaters when he was a kid. I also like in Last Crusade the scene where he's dressed as the Nazi and he's trying to like get away and he runs into Hitler.
Yeah.
Oh, the book.
And Hitler autographs his book for him.
Or better yet, when they're on the
Zeppelin.
The Zeppelin, and he comes up behind the one Nazi general, you know, and he's like, "Ticket, please." And he recognizes him, tosses him out the window, and everyone's looking at him. He goes, "No ticket."
Which Kevin Smith does a little homage to in Dogma.
Yes.
When he throws the angel off the train.
Mm.
Next film he does is Presumed Innocent. This is kind of like a forgettable film to me. It's Harrison Ford and Raul Julia, Brian Dennehy, Bonnie Bedelia. It's a lot of like, you know, another ensemble cast from the 80s. He's a lawyer who investigates the murder of a colleague, and he finds himself more connected to the crime than anyone else. So it's like, you know, guilty until proven, or innocent until proven guilty kind of thing. And but it was another like major hit because this is still like that run where Harrison Ford just like could do no wrong.
Harrison Ford's in it. It must be good.
So it's 1990. So we're in the 90s now.
We just made the 90s.
Then we get to Regarding Henry, which was suggested to us by Jason Pietzmeyer on Facebook. Regarding Henry.
Don't remember.
The one where he's a executive or something, and
he goes into I think, and he gets shot.
He's not very, you know, attentive to his family or his wife, and he goes into a bodega and he gets shot, and he comes out of a coma and he's got to like relearn everything, you know. And I think it's it's kind of like Harrison Ford's first attempt at playing a non-Harrison Ford character. Yeah, a dramatic role, more of a dramatic role than. And here's something interesting. Do you know who wrote the film? Regarding Henry? No. J.J. Abrams.
Whoa.
Really?
Yes, I'm looking at it here. Directed by Mike Nichols, written by J.J. Abrams. So this is 1991, so J.J. Abrams had to be pretty young when he wrote this.
He's out of diapers, man.
Yeah. He wrote it as a high school project, I guess. So he's a lawyer who's shot, loses his memory, must relearn his speech and mobility, and how to love and support his family. Yeah, the guy was in his early 20s when he wrote this. Yeah. Then he takes over the role of Jack Ryan in 1992 with Patriot Games, which is the follow-up to The Hunt for Red October.
Right.
Patriot Games is, of course, the one that has the awesome Sean Bean death scene in it, where he gets shot with the harpoon,
Which did not win.
Which did not win. And like you said, Kev, it's hard not to think of him as Jack Ryan because he did do 2 of the more popular Jack Ryan films. I think he did 2, right? I don't think he did more than that.
He did Clear and Present Danger, and he did
Patriot Games.
Yeah.
Clear and Present Danger was 2 years later. Then the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles.
TV
He
series.
plays Indiana Jones at age 50.
I think he was like 70 then, right?
Well, no, he was not even 50. I think he's probably in his 40s. I didn't know he appeared in Young Indiana Jones Chronicles at all.
It was a very brief scene. I do remember when they
One
were
episode,
shooting it
yeah.
that he was filming this one particular scene. I want to say it was in a cabin, and they aged him up a lot. And he had like an eye patch and everything. I forget.
Mm-hmm. Then he does lost my place here. He does The Fugitive next in 1993.
I didn't kill my wife.
I don't care. Now it's supposed to be a Harrison Ford vehicle, but kind of gets taken over by Tommy Lee Jones, who chews the scenery in every scene he's in. It actually wins Tommy Lee Jones the Best Supporting Actor Oscar that year.
He deserved it though.
And I remember, like, it was one of those things where, like, it's based on an old TV series.
Yep.
And it was like, do we really need a movie based on a TV series? And it ended up being better than the show.
Yeah.
Like, it's a really, really good adaptation.
And then everybody else wants to make one, and they all sucked.
Yeah.
Like the A-Team, and then
because they can't get their tone right. Like, it's like, are you trying to make it a comedy version of the original show, or are you trying to do a dramatic version of the original show?
Right.
Then he does an uncredited appearance as himself in a movie called Jimmy Hollywood, which I've never heard of. Clear and Present Danger comes next in 1994, and that's his last run as Jack Ryan. Before lending his voice as Indiana Jones to the Indiana Jones and Temple of the Forbidden Eye ride. What the hell is that? I guess it's is that like a Disney thing, like MGM or something?
No.
Then he does Sabrina in 1995. It's the movie that my wife likes to fall asleep to. And I fall asleep to it too, but just because I'm bored out of my fucking mind watching this movie.
So I'm looking up Jimmy Hollywood real quick, and it has Joe Pesci and Christian Slater in it.
Really? I've never heard of that movie.
Never did I.
Sabrina in 1995 is a remake of an Audrey Hepburn film from the 60s.
Not the Teenage Witch.
Another remake. It's actually not a bad movie. It's just, I'm not into that type of movie, but he's pretty good in it. He does The Devil's Own in 1997. I don't know this one either.
I think that's the one with
This one was good. This is about. I think I might have talked to you guys about this. I was looking for movies to watch around St. Patty's Day.
Mm-hmm.
This is where he plays a cop, New York cop, and he takes in an Irish exchange student who ends up being a member of the IRA, who's coming to America to get weapons to take back to Ireland to fight against the British. And it's played a really poor Irish accent from Brad Pitt, but it was okay. It was pretty good. I showed it to Megan, and she goes, "Oh yeah, this is good." It's
got a 6.2 on IMDb, which is kind of like middle of the road, but I've never heard of this one. I might have to check that one out at some point.
I think I have it. I can lend it to you on DVD if you still own a DVD player.
I do not. I watch all my shit for free on torrent sites. Then comes 1997, fucking classic film. One of our presidents that we would vote for from our presidential episode, President James Marshall, Air Force One.
The movie's called Get Off My Plane.
Yeah.
Get off my podcast.
Get off my podcast. That is one of my favorite Harrison Ford performances of all time. Also one of my favorite Gary Oldman performances of all time. Mm-hmm. Gary Oldman had that stretch in the 90s where he was like the villain in every movie. Just it's such a and then at the end, it does have that one like pretty bad scene at the end where they're trying to like get off the plane, and it's like a really bad CGI like plane landing on the ocean thing, but it's still early in the computer generated
Oh
graphics.
yeah, this
Ninety
might
seven.
only be this is maybe a year or two after Jurassic Park.
Yeah, and so it's still in its infancy, but it's still a good movie regardless. And it's got that poor William H. Macy getting shot in the head at the end of the film. Yeah, it's great. Glenn Close is in it as the vice president. People forget that because it's kind of like a sideline role for her.
Mhm.
Then he does a narration for a TV series documentary called Frontline. And then comes 6 Days, 7 Nights,
Right.
requested by, where's that guy's name out here? Doug Dorda on Facebook. It's not a popular opinion, but 6 Days, 7 Nights. And I don't know, Doug, if you're joking with me or not. This was considered, I think, was considered at the time the first major bomb in Harrison Ford's career.
Well, it does have Anne Heche and
It has Anne Heche
Plummer.
in it. So here's what happened with this film. So it comes out in 1998. Anne Heche had recently come out as a lesbian.
Yep.
At a time where it was still kind of like, oh, really? Like in Hollywood.
Mhm.
And I think that announcement kind of killed some of the interest in this film. It has a 5.8 out of 10 on IMDb, so it has a pretty bad rating. Robin Monroe, played by Anne Heche, is a New York Magazine editor, and she meets up with a gruff pilot named Quinn Harris, played by Harrison Ford. They have to put aside their mutual dislike for each other in order to survive a crash landing on a deserted South Sea island. And it was a mess of a film. Oh, look, Boba Fett's in it. Tamira Morris.
Yes. Yeah, Timur, I was about to say that. I was waiting for
Yeah, he's in it. Danny Trejo's in it.
I was thinking that's
Wow.
probably one of his first roles then.
Yeah. David Schwimmer's in it. Holy shit. But I do remember it being considered the first like major flop in his career. He did win a Blockbuster Entertainment Award for favorite actor. It didn't get any Razzies though. I'm surprised. I thought that would have been a Razzie film. 6 Days, 7 Nights. I know there was some kind of trivia on it that I don't remember, but yeah, I have not seen this movie, so I can't do too much of a deep dive in it. I just know that
It was not popular.
I just know that it did not do very well in the box office. Let's see.
I
Right.
I'm gonna look it up here. Hold on, box office thing. Where is the box office on here?
at the bottom.
Oh, there you go. It had a $70 million estimated budget and made $16 million in its opening weekend. Its final domestic gross was $74 million. So it only made $4 million over its budget in America.
Well,
Worldwide, it made $164 million, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
And it's because he's still a popular actor like worldwide.
right.
But by Hollywood standards, if you barely double the budget, it's kind of considered a bomb. Like for a $70 million movie, they expect like $100 million in just domestic gross alone.
Yeah. Also,
Mhm.
worldwide, I like to say that the other countries are a little more open-minded to.
Well, I don't
again-
even know if it's that. I think it's just because it's Harrison Ford. He then does a film called Random Hearts in 1999. I remember this movie coming out. I remember the trailer for it because it stars Harrison Ford and Kristen Scott Thomas, who had recently done The English Patient. But I don't really know much else about this film.
So they are people whose spouses have died in a plane crash, right? And they kind of connect when they find out that the plane has crashed and their spouses are dead. And over the course of the movie, each of them kind of finds out that their spouses were actually having an affair with each other. So they have a connection in that respect.
Oh, wow. So that's interesting. Yeah. It's got a 5.3 out of 10 on IMDb. So half the people like it, half the people don't. Then he does What Lies Beneath in 2000. And this is one I'm going to dive into a little bit because
Huge.
it's Tooch's the one that she said, and there's a couple other people who voted for this one. But
And he's sleeping with Michelle Pfeiffer in the movie.
it's
Come on.
Michelle Pfeiffer
Mhm.
at the height of Michelle Pfeifferdom, and it's a different role for him because as you know, he turns out to be the villain in the film, and it's not something you expect from Harrison Ford.
Not at all.
The problem I had with the movie is that it didn't know if it wanted to be a murder mystery or a supernatural thriller.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
You know, because there's a lot of like stuff where like she's seeing things and seeing like what she thinks is the ghost of his former lover and all that, and then you see the dead body at the end. Looks like it grabs him in the water when he drowns, and it's like it jumps back and forth between supernatural and just straight up like thriller. And
Keeps you guessing.
Yeah, well, it keeps you guessing, but it also
Keeps you guessing. But it is a good thriller.
I mean, it is a good
suspense
thriller.
one.
It's
Yeah.
good suspense. I like Michelle Pfeiffer in it. She's really good.
Mhm.
There's a lot of good supporting actors in it, like Miranda Otto and James Remar and all that. But it's like, yeah, it just felt like, you know, it needed to pick a lane. But otherwise, I mean, I'm not. It sounds like I'm dissing it, but I'm not. I thought it was a good movie. I just felt like it needed to pick a lane at some points. K-19 The Widowmaker, 2002. This is a submarine thriller.
So this is one of those ones that we could have put into that twin movies. Would this have come out around the same time as Crimson Tide?
Yeah, we didn't do the 2000s.
Oh, okay.
This is 2002, and we stopped in 1999. But yeah, this came out the same year as Crimson Tide, and I want to say
Das Boot?
Was it U571?
U571.
It came out around this time too. Das Boot was like the 80s, I think.
Right.
But yeah, this is like it was like a year for submarine thrillers. So the one I remember Crimson Tide more than anything else because that was the one with Denzel and Gene Hackman.
I thought that was the one that got pushed the most. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one that had like awards consideration.
Yeah.
I definitely have seen this one.
Actually, Crimson Tide came out in 95.
Oh, wow.
And U571 came out in 2000. So,
but I always feel like they came out around the same time, you know?
Like, yeah, I feel that way too.
They kind of blend together. Liam Neeson was in this.
I don't think this one got a lot of push on the advertisement side.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like you saw it was there. The next thing you know, it was gone.
He's also playing a Russian submarine captain, and he doesn't do the Sean Connery thing where he plays a Russian submarine captain. Like he actually
Russian.
He tries to go Russian in this one, I think. Then he does Hollywood Homicide, which is another box office bomb.
Oh, you gotta have some of those.
You gotta have a few. Water to Wine, I never heard of. Plays Jethro the bus driver.
Well, that tells you a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, a movie called Firewall in 2006. And then in 2008, he does the Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Long-awaited 20-year.
Wait a minute. You missed one.
Yeah, I know. He did the I'm fucking Ben Affleck music short video for Jimmy Kimmel.
I just want to hear I'm fucking Ben
Affleck.
20 years since
20 years you wait for it.
The last
and we get Shallow LaBeouf.
The next one.
We finally get Indiana Jones marrying Marion. We also get Mutt.
Shallow fucking LaBeouf.
By Shia LaBeouf. We also get Kate Blanchett in one of her least glamorous roles.
As a Russian.
We also get John Hurt playing Crazy Old Man, which is basically the role he plays late in his life before he dies in every movie he's in.
Including the War Doctor.
We also get the ridiculous saving yourself from a nuclear bomb by hiding in a lead refrigerator.
Without suffocating.
And without nuclear fallout after you come out of the fridge.
Details.
Yeah, I'm being picky.
Yeah.
Then he does Crossing Over in 2009. I'm not too familiar with that.
Nope.
Extraordinary Measures in 2010, and in this one, he plays a researcher trying to find a cure for a rare genetic disorder. Co-stars Brendan Fraser. It's not a bad film. I've seen it. It's like Brendan Fraser's trying to find a cure for this genetic disorder that his kids have, and Harrison Ford plays like the researcher that he works with to try to figure out what the cure is and all that. And it's one of those like kind of saccharine early 2000 movies. Then he does a movie called Morning Glory, which I'm not familiar with. And then the amazing film that Kevin and I went to the theater to see,
Mhm.
Cowboys and Aliens.
I've seen bits and pieces of it.
It was just like the way we used to play it when we were kids. Cowboys and aliens.
Aliens.
I'm kidding.
So here's the thing. Stars Daniel Craig.
Yep.
Who's coming off his first James Bond film. Stars Harrison Ford.
Mhm.
Stars Olivia Wilde, who's
Mhm.
pretty up and coming and hot at the time. All these other like up and coming actors like Paul Dano and Sam Rockwell and all these
Clancy Brown.
Clancy Brown's in it. Keith Carradine, like Abigail Spencer, a lot of like up and comers. And then you get the name, and it's the name of it is Cowboys and Aliens, and you're like, how the fuck did you go wrong with that? That sounds awesome. And it's directed by Jon Favreau.
Yeah.
Coming off Iron Man at this point. And it's like, you can't go wrong. And man, do they go wrong.
Oh.
It just goes off the hinges, man. This movie just, I don't even know how to describe it. It's about cowboys and aliens. It's the best I could do.
Yeah, about aliens abducting people from the out west, and one of the cowboys having alien technology to shoot down them.
Yeah. Then he plays. Then they do some deleted scenes on the re-release of the Star Wars films. In 2013, he plays a role that's really different for him. He's in the movie 42 about the life story of Jackie Robinson.
Good movie.
He plays Branch Rickey, who is the owner of the Brooklyn Dodgers. He's the one who decides to bring Jackie Robinson on the team, who defends him all the time. And it's a different role for him because he's actually playing a real person and attempting to act and sound like that real person.
Yep. And
he does a really, really good job of it. It's Chadwick Boseman just showing that he's got the chops to be somebody great, still unfortunately taken from us too soon. 42 is a great movie. I actually just rewatched it recently because one of the teachers at my school had just read a story about Jackie Robinson with her kids, and so she showed him a few scenes from the film, and I was like, yeah, that's a great movie. I forgot how good this movie is.
Mm-hmm.
Then he does a movie called Paranoia, which I have not heard of. And then again, a movie that I really like that I think is kind of underrated, Ender's Game, based on the novel Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. Very underrated sci-fi flick. He plays Gruff Colonel and Colonel Graff. Gruff Colonel Graff.
Rough Graff?
Rough Graff, who is the guy that recruits Ender for the military school. Has a great twist ending. If you've never seen it or read the book, I highly recommend both. Although I recommend reading the book and then seeing the film.
Okay.
Then he has a small role in Anchorman 2, The Legend Continues. We wanted to know if he did a comedy. He did a very poor sequel to the Will Ferrell film Anchorman. The best part of that movie is the Anchorman fight scene that goes off the rails. Then, Kev, do you remember this? I don't remember him in Expendables 3.
He was a drummer.
I do. He had a very small part. I think he was flying the helicopter.
Was he the helicopter pilot? That's right.
Mm-hmm.
He was the helicopter pilot. Kevin and I saw all three Expendable films in the movies and laughed hysterically at all three of them. We laughed so hard at the first one, people were looking at us in the theater because it's not a comedy. It's not supposed to be a comedy. And we're hysterical laughing, and people are like, what are these guys laughing at? and like they're also so over the top and silly that they kind of blend together after a while. I remember like Expendables 3, I forgot he's the helicopter pilot. Kelsey Grammer's in it for some fucking reason. Like,
dude, I'm going through it, and I love. I mean, the Expendables movie is the culmination of 80s action movie heroes, right? So, Sly Stallone, Jet Li, Antonio Banderas, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Mel Gibson, Wesley Snipes, Dolph Lundgren, Terry Crews.
My favorite thing about the Expendables series, and I don't remember, it was the second movie.
Ronda Rousey.
Yeah, oh yeah. That was the second film then. The second film is when Chuck Norris comes out. Mm-hmm. And the best part of all three of those films is the fact that Chuck Norris tells a Chuck Norris joke. Where he's like, I heard you died. And he goes, I got bit by a snake. And after 5 agonizing days, the snake died. Like, Chuck Norris is all Chuck Norris joke. And then we're kind of getting to like, the more recent stuff here. We got The Age of Adeline, which is a weird sort of like time travel film that co-stars Blake Lively. Does The Force Awakens, where he gets killed off as Han Solo, killed by his son Kylo Ren. I cried so hard in the theater, the guy next to me got up and moved.
Dude, you were embarrassing me. What could I do? We drove together.
Yeah. Then he plays Rick Deckard again in Blade Runner 2049. And all I can say about his performance of Deckard in that film is he forgot how to play Deckard from the original Blade Runner and basically just played Han Solo again. Otherwise, it's actually not a bad film, 2049. It's Denis Villeneuve, who did the Dune film, one of his first American films. Also, first American film for Ana de Armas, and you already know that I'm in love with her. Kevin sent me a video of her the other day.
Did.
Secret Life of Pets 2, he plays Rooster, the old dog who learns a new trick. And then we got The Rise of Skywalker, where he plays the vision of Han Solo that Kylo Ren has.
Uncredited.
Uncredited. Yeah, it's weird. Then he does A Call of the Wild, where he plays John Thornton opposite a CGI dog for some reason.
Yeah, that one was really played up. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of advertisement for that one.
Got a lot of ads for that, but it was like so weird because the dog was CGI, and I'm like, why?
That's because they couldn't find a dog that would cooperate.
Really, in all of Hollywood,
that's
you couldn't find I couldn't find a husky that could play the main character of Jack London.
No, because every dog they got thought Harrison Ford was so old they tried to bury him.
Oh my god. Then he does he's working currently on a TV series called Shrinking, where he plays a psychiatrist. And the only film he's got in post-production right now is Indiana Jones 5, coming out in 2023. And what news do we have about this film? Let's see. Harrison Ford's in it. Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who was the voice of the robot in Solo, a Star Wars story. Mads Mikkelsen, who is like everybody's favorite weird, Dutch actor all of a sudden. Antonio Banderas is in it.
Hey, Toby Jones.
Toby Jones. That's about it, man. No plot is known at this time. The script is written by 2 brothers named Jez and John Henry Butterworth.
Oh, the Butterworth brothers.
The Butterworth brothers. They do have some photos from set, though.
Oh, wait a minute. I see some trivia here. John Williams was announced to return to compose the 5th film.
He's only 127 years old. I'm looking at a picture of him dressed as Indiana Jones right now, and I'm like, holy shit, he looks so old.
Well, he did that. He did in Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls. So
I know, but I mean, like, you're talking now, like, what, 10 years later at this point?
Yeah.
And he just looks tired. I mean, I know the man's still doing his own stunts, so he's probably like exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
What year is this film taking place in? I have to think this is probably like the 60s, because doesn't Crystal Skull like the 50s?
Yeah, the Crystal Skull's the 50s, the Cold War.
Yeah,
the fire department truck in the one scene looks like to be a 60s era.
Mm-hmm. So I have to think this is probably going to be like the 60s then, yeah. So,
yeah, I'm looking at some of the pictures of the cars and the character.
Yeah. There's no subtitle for it, so we don't quite know what Indiana Jones is doing yet.
No.
I'm telling you, it's going to be Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of AARP. All right. So thank you, everybody, for joining us for episode 60, our deep dive into the career of Harrison Ford, lovingly titled Get Off My Podcast. Mike, do you have any beer wisdom for us?
I do, a matter of fact. I only drink a little beer, but when I do, I turn to another person, and that person drinks a lot of beer.
All right. So join us next week, everybody. Next week, we're going to be doing our summer, beginning of summer spectacular We have Memorial Day coming up in a couple weeks, so we're going to be doing a little dive into some of the best summer vacation films of all time. So that'll be episode 61 next week. Thanks again for joining us tonight for the Harrison Ford Deep Dive, episode 60. Don't forget to send us a message on filmsandfermentation@gmail.com or visit us on any of our social media or podcast platforms. All the links can be found on linktree.com/filmsandfermentation. Also, please become a supporter on Patreon if you like the show. The Patreon link is also on Linktree. Thanks again for joining us here at the crossroads between pickled and fermented. I hope you enjoyed listening to this program as much as we enjoyed recording it for you. Gentlemen, what do you think about your drinks tonight?
Oh, mine was awesome as normal.
Mine was really good, and I switched midway through to the Bitburger Fest beer, which is another German beer.
Mine is really tasty.
Bittel in Bet. Bittel in Bit.
I'm not sure if I want another one because I might be hurting if I do. Because I drank a whole giant mason jar full of that, and it was pretty good.
I got a half day tomorrow. So.
Look, don't worry. Everything's going to be fine. Trust me.
It's Friday. I think I'll live. So thanks again for joining us tonight. Make sure you join us again next week. I'm Leo.
I'm Kevin.
I'm Mike.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I got a bad feeling about this.
I got a bad feeling about this.
I said that already.